This is First and 15th. We talk about inspiration, motivation, life-changing moments, and conquering fears. Twice a month, we have amazing guests popping through. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. So, hello everyone, and welcome back to First and 15th. Today is March 15th, and I'm your host, Karal Bush, and we are here with the lovely Dr. Rhonda Jordan Antoine. So, Rhonda, just tell us who you are and what you do.
Thanks so much, Carol, and thank you so much for having me join you today. So I am Rhonda Jordan Antoine. I am a senior energy specialist for the World Bank. I'm based in Washington, D.C., but I lead investment projects in sub-Saharan Africa. I also lead the geospatial electrification planning program for the Africa region. And I have worked across many regions for, I would say, the last 15 years. I've been at the bank for 10 years, and I've worked in energy and development for another 5 years. I've worked in Middle East and North Africa, Eastern Europe and Central Asia, Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the Africa regions. And I've also worked in the areas of power sector planning, utility performance, mini grid regulation, solar home system deployment, and variable renewable grid integration. So I have a passion for energy. And besides engineering, I love my family, and I do have a passion for the arts, including dance and music. So that's awesome. Just a little bit about myself.
You were quite the dancer, but I'll keep it a secret. So let's go ahead and jump right in. How did you decide that you wanted to be an engineer? Because that is quite the field, and there are not a lot of women in that field.
Thanks. Yeah, so I mean, I think that I always knew that I loved solving problems from a hard math problem, I wanted to do it. If it was a hard physics problem, I wanted to try to solve it. So that was kind of just always the case from when I was a child. Now, at the end of school, I knew I liked physics. I knew I liked math. And I think like any other 12th grader or someone going to college, you sit down with a book of the different majors that are at the college you chose, and you're like, what should I do? And my mother actually said the hardest area of engineering was electrical engineering. So, oh, do that.
That's your mom's idea.
So that's how I selected electrical engineering. But then, you know, let's be honest, I had to decide again after I got my degree that I would continue to do engineering. And I think many people, even after you have, let's say, your bachelor's or even your master's, you're not quite sure what you want to do with that degree. And so I spent some time after obtaining my master's just traveling, dancing, performing. And it was actually during travels that I realized I wanted to try to use my skill set for energy development. So it's like I studied engineering in college, but I didn't really know how I wanted to use it, what application, right? And so I was traveling that I realized, like, okay, I can use it to help this challenge or address help these issues. And so that's when I decided, after it was, let's say, 2 years after my master's, I figured that's what I wanted to do.
Now your mom gave you a push, but then you also realized how you can balance your own choices too. With you being in a male-focused field, how did you get past any kinds of challenges in college and in the workforce as well?
So, I mean, I would say first, I didn't actually think of engineering as being dominated, because it wasn't presented to me as such. And I have a unique situation because my mother is an engineer. So I didn't think that, oh, women are less likely to go into engineering, or that they shouldn't be in engineering. So I never thought about it that way. And so I think that I approached my training and my career as if I'm supposed to be there. no, no matter what, because that's how I felt. And in my day-to-day work, I don't actually notice that I'm sometimes the only woman in the room. But nevertheless, in the world that we live in,
Right.
you do face adversity, being a woman and a person of color. And the way that I generally address it is really two key approaches. One is through excellence, and the other one is reflection. Reflection of myself, my environment, the organization I'm working in, and also in seeking counsel. And if I can give one example, a simple example. When I was in college and undergrad, I had a teacher assistant who, for whatever reason, would not acknowledge me, my presence, that my hand raised, the question jumping in his face, just actually wouldn't acknowledge me at all. And I thought, in terms of excellence, that wasn't so much an issue at that time. We were learning, we were in the learning environment. So I was doing the same work that everyone else in the class was doing. I wasn't doing any worse than anyone else. Always make sure that you're doing your best, right? But just reflecting, I tried to see, okay, is there anything that I could do better? Can I phrase my questions in a different way? Am I presenting them in the wrong way? But then I realized, okay, this person just has somehow an issue with me, whatever that is, whether it's a woman or of color. Unfortunately, I was in a situation where I could actually raise it to his boss, right? The professor. And so, I did that. I did that in the most diplomatic way. I didn't accuse the individual of being malicious, but I said, listen, this is the issue that I'm having, and I actually, need the support of a TA in order to be successful in this class. And this individual is demonstrating these behaviors. Laid it out very, very clearly. I never had an issue with that TA after that day. But what I can say is that, I know it's a privilege to be able to even say that was my response, and that was something option for me, right? In times before us, maybe it wasn't an option to go and, let's say, report someone's behavior or what have you. Even in the environment today, you have to be careful, right? There are structures to do it diplomatically, anonymously, etc. But the two things is just ensuring excellence, and also, always making sure I reflect on how I can be better at what I'm doing. I can reflect on my environment. Does it support me trying to address this challenge? Does it support, me going to a supervisor? And not that would dictate how I would handle the situation.
That is something that I'm sure that lots of women of color have experienced, whether it was in undergrad, graduate school, or workforce. According to Zippia.com, enter my as well, for just helping you see that you don't have to be, a certain kind of person to do this work, that you are great how you are. So there's a common theme that I have written down my notes. It is ensuring excellence. So you have said that maybe 3 times. So where did that whole kind of competence come from?
Well, I think it comes from parenting. Both my father expected excellence from myself, my brothers. The family expects excellence from each individual. And so whether you decide to be an artist, whether you decide to go into finance, whether you decide to be an engineer or a doctor, it's always excellence, and excellence with the aim of being the best version of yourself, right? And so when you are in challenging situations, whether you're trying to get your degree, there can be times when you feel discouraged. But if this is something that you really want to do, your heart is in it, and you're willing to put in the work, then you can become that. And so, you know, there's this always this standard of excellence. Always do your best to become a version of yourself. I can honestly say that I was facing some challenges in the last years in the workplace with excellence being my first response. It makes it a little bit difficult for folks to either look over your work or somehow count your contributions or what have you, if you really have a high standard of work that you're delivering. But I would say that excellence just comes from parenting. This is what my family and village has demanded of each person.
I love that, because that is exactly how I'm raising these three little girls, how you're raising your sons as well. So I am definitely so happy, you know, that your parents both had instilled excellence. Like, there is no mediocre. If you have an issue, I'm sure, you know, it's okay, but let's not strive to be not the best. So I love that about your mom and dad. Okay. But let's get back into the World Bank. Okay, so when people think of the World Bank, they think of finances, money.
So the World Bank, I mean, honestly, I didn't know what the bank did before I got in the area of energy and development. But the World Bank is a bank. So it's just that it lends money to governments. And it lends huge amounts of money to government. So it can be on the order of a few million to over $1 billion for one single project.
Time, because that is a lot for one project. Can you just repeat that again for those who may not have heard you?
Yes. Any project can receive, let's say, a few $1 million to over $1 billion for one single. And so, you know, you can imagine if you get a loan just for a car or a house, you know, you're having to, there's a certain due diligence that the banks like to do to make sure that you can repay that money, right, to them. So the World Bank giving such huge amounts of money to these governments, they like to ensure that whatever they're lending their money for is actually being used as such, right? And so also the projects that are supported through the bank have a specific development outcome that is promised through the implementation of the project. So the banks want to ensure that those development outcomes are achieved, that they're really helping the countries. So as part of their due diligence, they want to ensure that the projects are prepared very well. And they also want to ensure that the projects are designed well. And that's where engineers come in. So we work with the governments and help them design these projects that they are going to be implementing with the money that the World Bank lends the government. So this is how engineering and finance are.
That has helped me a whole lot, because I was wondering how was it even, you know, tied to energy, engineering, and finance. And now I see, because you explained it. So that's really intriguing. I'm learning a lot right now. Because you have been with the bank for about 10 years or so. So you have a top two.
Yes, 10 years. Yes, I do. So one is a project that I did, I want to say between 2016 and 2017. And we used, at the time, it was innovative geospatial analytics to help the government of Kenya design its national electrification strategy, which means that we help them identify all of the projects that they needed to implement over time so that everyone in the country has access to electricity. And anybody watching, if you don't know, there are certain countries that most of the population doesn't have access to power. So essentially, we work with the government to define a plan to ensure that everyone has access to electricity. And the government was, you know, so excited about this strategy and plan, and they launched it. They endorsed it. There was a huge event. The president of the country showed up, and you know, they acknowledged the importance of the work. So that was very exciting. And then the second project that I'm very proud of is one that I'm working on now. It's an emergency solar power project in West Africa. And we are deploying solar PV and battery storage in 4 countries in West Africa, in Chad, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Togo. And it's an emergency project. And so it was a huge team of about 70 people. And we designed the project in 4 months. And so right now we're implementing the project, and we hope to issue the first tender at the end of March. So I'm really excited to see
You are
where
doing
this
some
project
amazing
goes.
work, Rhonda. And just the fact that you are a Black woman who is standing out in this field, who was leading these projects with various nations, is so admirable and commendable. For those young girls who may want to get into your field, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would just say that it's very fun. I really enjoy what I do. It's exciting. It can be rewarding. You can impact lives. And I would just say that if it's challenging, anything you do is going to be hard. So believe in yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And if it's something you want, you can do it. Absolutely. And it's
Awesome.
really, really fun.
So where can people find out more about what you do with the World Bank, like a website or kind of a link I can share with them as well?
Sure. So I'm horrible with with knowing my social media handles, but on Instagram
Mhm.
it's Rhonda Lenay, RHOALENAI. I'm also on LinkedIn, Rhonda Jordan Antoine. You can find me. And
Awesome.
yeah,
Okay.
to places you can find me.
And do you have anything else that you wanted to share? Either about what you do with the work, your love of dance.
Well, I would just like to say that, and this might need to be another session, but I love engineering. I do also have a passion for dance, and I have, been fortunate to also have some professional performing experience as well. And one thing I just wanted to say is that, God gives each
Yeah.
person multiple talents, and you can use each of those. It's
I
just
love
a
that.
matter of timing. And so that's what I want
I
to
think
leave
that
you with,
that is awesome.
and maybe
Okay.
for another
You
time.
come back
So
for another episode. But I have learned so much, Rhonda, during our time about engineering, the World Bank, energy, and your work in Kenya, Chad, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Togo. So definitely thank you for joining us for Women's History Month, because in my opinion, you are making history, not just for Black women, but women all over the world. And so I definitely am happy to know you. And so I wish you all the best in your travels, because you travel a lot. And so definitely thank you for all that you do, Rhonda. And so everyone, thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on April 1st.